Shailene Murray. Am I missing anyone? Okay, and all councillors are here. Are we missing any councillors? No. Okay, call to order. Any declarations of conflict?
No.
Kevin, just on mute, please. Okay, go ahead, Kevin.
I have one, Your Worship. A family member starting to work with the contractor within a week or so I have to excuse myself from this.
On 18 Trainer Street, yes.
Yes, because I had legal, we had the legal check it all out, and they said, yes, it's best that I step aside.
Okay. No issues with that, so you should log out now or cut out. Councillor Duffy?
Yes.
I'm just going to go to the agenda right now, so there's only one item on the agenda.
Yeah, can you hear me, Your Worship?
We can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, because my video, there's something wrong with my video. Rory just left, so I'll have to go without it, okay?
Perfect. We'll send Rory down shortly.
Okay, okay.
Do you want to start off with your presentation, please?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's public meeting. Council is pleased that you have joined us, whether in person, on WebEx, or live stream. I'm Councillor Mike Duffy, the Chair of the City's Planning and Heritage Committee, and just before the Mayor starts the formal session, I'd like to go over a few ground rules as noted in the Council's Procedure Bylaw and the Municipal Government Act.
I think you cut off there, Councillor. Councillor Duffy, can you hear me?
He's offline.
Looks like he dropped. I'm going to head down and help him out.
Could you? Okay, Councillor Duffy has just a short preamble, and then he has a short document on the purpose of the meeting, and we'll just wait for him to get back into the meeting. I know our first presenter is waiting there in the Parkdale room, and that's Mr. Mike Murphy. And he'll be followed by Jerry Wolfrey immediately after his presentation. So, Mike, just hold on there for a short bit. We're trying to get Councillor Duffy back on. Okay.
This is working good, isn't it?
It's working. No, it is. It's just sometimes it knocks us out. And I like WebEx because it's like broadcast news. Councillor McKay, are you there? Are you still there?
Yes, I am.
So you may be cutting short from this meeting too, correct?
I do have to 45.
Yeah, just to give us a call out when you're ready to leave.
Okay.
We could, while we're waiting, we could give Cindy Shen a shout out. It's her birthday today.
Where's Cindy? Who is it?
Cindy Shen.
Oh, okay. Happy birthday, Cindy.
Yeah.
Is Cindy with our staff there, Councillor Bernard?
No, she's one of the constituents that sent in a letter.
Oh, okay. Okay.
If you read your package, she's in there, and she says today is her birthday.
Okay. Well, to call out to Cindy. Happy birthday. Merry Christmas. Okay. And I think most of you should have your package with you. Okay. If anything, we may just ask Councillor Duffy to sit up in the room, go into the chamber and be with Rory Quezon. That'd be the backup. We did that last night with our legal counsel, Karen Campbell. She sat in the room with Mr. Kelly.
Where's Mike? Mike's at City Hall?
He's down in the Sherwood room, and that could be the issue because our Wi-Fi may not be strong enough down there.
Right.
Councillor Tweed, are you down in the West Royalty room? Just on mute.
I can't tell you where I'm at, Brandy. We're planning an attack.
Okay, okay. I know he's somewhere in the building.
Fire 1.
We'll know when he leaves.
Fire 2.
Okay, here's Councillor Duffy's here now. Can you hear me, Councillor Duffy? Okay, are you able to get video?
Yes, I have now.
Okay, just turn
Where
your
did I
video on.
lose you? Right after the purpose of the meeting?
You were just going in, you were just going to lay out the rules? That's
Yeah.
what you're about. Just restart from there, please.
From the purpose of this hearing?
Just where you were going to lay out the rules of the meeting, but start with the purpose. Okay?
Okay, the purpose of this hearing is to review the decision of council of June 8th of 2020 with regard to a lot consolidation that was approved for 18 Trainer Street. The intent this evening is not to go over every detail of this development proposal, but to determine whether council or staff made any material error or omission in reaching their decision to approve the lot consolidation. Section 3.15 of the zoning and 3.15 of the zoning and development bylaw provides residents with a mechanism to have decisions of council reviewed prior to and as of right appeal being heard at the Island Regulatory and Appeals Commission. This reconsideration process was included in the city zoning and development bylaw to determine whether any significant procedural errors or omissions occurred in the decision-making process, and if so, to allow council the opportunity to remedy any such procedural errors or omissions before needing to have IRAC rule on an application under appeal. On November the 30th of 2020, council determined that they would reconsider their decision of the June 8th, 2020, based upon submissions of residents and the requirements as set out in 3.15.3 of the zoning and development bylaw. At this point, council is seeking submissions from the public under section 3.15.5 of the bylaw to obtain as much information as possible as to why the decision in June allowing the lot consolidation is alleged to have been based upon a material error or omission. There will be no submissions from staff this evening or questions of staff or council. Rather, tonight is the public's opportunity to indicate why they feel the process was conducted inappropriately and/or the approval of the lot consolidation related to this development was made in error. As those at home can see, only the mayor and the chair of planning are physically present this evening. All other councilors are participating in this meeting online using WebEx. How to participate in the meeting this evening and the process in general. The public meeting this evening will be conducted in accordance with the most recent circuit breaker order of the public health officer dated December the 7th, 2020. A copy of the COVID operational plan for this evening's meeting is available upon request and is posted on the city's website at www.charlottetown.ca. This meeting is also conducted in accordance with the Municipal Government Section 122 as recently amended and the city's procedural bylaw, section 37.3, dealing with public meetings, which states, conduct during the public council meeting. Each applicant shall be allotted a maximum of 10 minutes to speak. In this case, Mr. John Barrett will be granted 10 minutes because he is regarded as the applicant and because he initiated the reconsideration process. Participants, on the other hand, shall speak only once and for no more than 5 minutes on each agenda item. There is, of course, only one agenda here tonight. All other speakers should limit their comments to 5 minutes. Anyone is permitted and encouraged to make a written submission. All written submissions by letter may be delivered to the city's Planning and Heritage Department at P.O. Box 98, 199 Queen Street, Charlottetown, PE, C1A 7K2. Or submissions may be emailed to planning@charlottetown.ca anytime on or before 12 noon on Thursday, December the 17th, 2020. All responses received will become part of the public record. Those wishing to be physically present and make a presentation in the council chamber must leave after their presentation in order to bring new speakers into City Hall in order to meet COVID-19 requirements. Those wishing to make a presentation via WebEx video conference must wait for their names to be called before making their presentation. Residents connected via WebEx are also requested to put their audio mic on mute until they are asked to speak. There's also an opportunity for residents to watch the proceedings as they happen by watching the live streaming at www.charlottetown.ca/video. The meeting will be recorded and will be available on the city's website at www.charlottetown.ca/video for anyone to review. That's it, Your Worship. I turn the meeting back over to you.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. And I know Councillor Duffy does have his timer present, so
Yes.
we will be timing just to ensure that all the speakers get an opportunity to speak at this meeting. And there are 5 that will be zooming in through WebEx, and the others will be in person. So we'll go to the first speaker. Mike, can you hear me there?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so Mike, do you want to start with your presentation, and just remember that you're allotted 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me start off by saying that this is just about the last place I want to be this evening, standing here in front of this camera. However, to remain silent on this issue would be a disservice to the kids who play street hockey on Katy Drive, to the seniors who walk on routes around the neighborhood without fear of being struck by a car, to all those who walk their dogs day and night in the neighborhood, and in fact, to all residents of Southfield Estates. I want to speak specifically about the traffic study. I've already looked for some of the safety issues, but perhaps the most glaring safety issue exists at both accesses to the subdivision. More particularly, there are 4 left turns involved in entering and exiting. In other words, a left turning vehicle has to cross the path of a non-coming vehicle either and or exit the subdivision. Left turns are well documented to be one of the most dangerous vehicle maneuvers you can make. I have determined the city does not have a standard framework for the completion of traffic studies. The process used in this case was one where the developer was required to obtain and pay for the study. This model does not exhibit a strong sense of transparency. In fact, it creates a perception of beholding, wherein the consultant is beholden to the developer because the developer requests and pays for study. In an environment where there is a perception of uncertainty, transparency is important. CBCL Limited was hired by the developer to conduct a study. Interestingly enough, there are no indications throughout the report outlining the qualifications of CBCL to conduct such a study. Further, there is no mention in the report of any meeting between city planning staff and CBCL to determine the study scope or the data requirements. For example, developments that impact a provincial highway may require additional information, like who controls access to that highway, or what are the future development plans for the area. It appears consultants alone will have to determine what data goes into the study and what does not. This study states the site is located in the northern part of Charlottetown, situated in a residential subdivision or nearby commercial businesses. In fact, the site is not located in a residential subdivision, rather it borders on a residential subdivision, a significant distinction. This statement makes me wonder how familiar the authors of the study are with the area. I'd like to talk for a minute about the data used to support the study conclusions. The authors documented that the COVID-19 pandemic impacted peak traffic volumes. I couldn't agree more. The authors of the report used the term recent count data from nearby intersections. Those intersections being the Peter Pan intersection, the Queen's Arms intersection, and the relatively new Princess Auto intersection. Problem is, the data used for the Peter Pan and the Princess Autumn intersection was collected on March 7th, 2019. The data used for the Queen's Arms intersection was collected on March 7th, 2017. Does anyone think volume counts collected in March any year will be anywhere close to those collected at peak traffic periods during any one of our 6 more seasonally favorable months? So although we always term the data counts as recent, I would submit they are certainly not a true reflection of peak traffic volumes for the majority of the year. I urge council to take note of this. Sometimes there can be more inferred from a report based on what it doesn't say than what it does. In this report, there is no information related to motor vehicle accidents at either affected intersection. Surely collision information would be considered to be very relevant and relatively easy to obtain. There's no information documenting the effect of additional traffic would have on the current commercial businesses operating on the affected stretch of Malbec Road, including traffic frequenting Royalty Maple Cottages and the Andrews of Charlottetown Nursing Home. In fact, there is no mention report at all of the existence of nearby seniors' home, school bus traffic, transit stops, pedestrian activity, adequate street crossing times, driveways near intersections, on-street parking, curbing, crosswalks, or sidewalks. Further, there is no information detailing how long we can rely on existing data before a new count is required. The report essentially indicates no field observations were completed at any time to verify traffic volumes, let alone during peak hours in the midst of the tourist season. The complete report is based on assumptions. Further, why is the owner of Royalty Maples Cottage allowed to move another cottage onto the property and traffic from that cottage can use the current access point to Malbec Road, yet traffic from this proposal cannot? What happens if the current owner or another developer who acquires Royalty Maple Cottages decides to remove the cottages, build 6 or more apartment buildings similar to those being proposed here? What happens if a future new owner decides to locate a transport company on a portion of the remaining property and the current owner refuses to grant access to the Malbec Road? Does that traffic get funneled through Train Street as well? Mr. Duffy has explained to me the aforementioned uses are considered permitted use, which means a landowner can avail themselves of permitted uses to all of these zones as long as he or she operates within the parameters set out for that particular zone. He further explained that this is called a matter of right, and council has no authority to intervene. What happens, as articulated by Councillor Duffy, if a funeral home, a cannabis store, a motorcycle club decide to set up shop on a portion of the remaining property? We already know based on the decision respecting the proposed Mazda dealership just a few years ago, the city doesn't seem keen about adding further traffic to Malbec Road. Are you going to send that traffic out to Train Street? I repeat the cautionary words repeated to me by Mr. Duffy. Be careful what you ask for.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Mike, you're at over 6 minutes. Are you going to summarize pretty soon?
I have 3/4 of a page left.
Okay, thank you.
One of the objectives of traffic study surely must be to ensure traffic flow, movements, problems that currently exist are not worsened by short-sighted planning. The report assumed a 90/10% traffic split in favor of the Urban Drive intersection over the Gates Drive intersection. A site visit during peak traffic periods would have provided accurate information, not assumptions to base these study conclusions on. In fact, I would submit that calling this document a traffic study is misleading. It's basically a traffic report based on assumptions gleaned from existing data taken from unaffected intersections during low volume traffic periods, not studied. Further, Synchro software used to perform the capacity analysis on the assumed data, not peak period data, for both affected intersections. It is to be noted, the data this report was based on is not outdated, search would not present a true picture of the traffic volume at either of the affected intersections for the majority of the year. Consequently, the traffic volume data fed to the Sync Road software is not correct, then the conclusions not correct either. Finally, I find it unconscionable this unnecessary expense, work, and anguish will be imposed on the residents of Silsbee Estates during this time of COVID. In fact, I would consider it to be extreme action under any circumstances. Thank you very much.
Mike, could you, you're going to leave as a copy of your presentation, or could you email it to Ellen Cantain?
I certainly will.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mike.
Thank you.
Okay, so our next speaker is Jerry Wolfrey. And I know some councillors are stating that there's an echo. It's difficult, so we'll have to use their written report as a reference when we review this reconsideration.
There's an echo, but you can hear him.
Yeah, no, it's in the Parkdale room, and you know what it's like in the Parkdale room. So there's a written report, Councillor Bernard. So if some councillors are missing it, they'll have that written report. Jerry?
Thank you.
Yes.
I just wanted to say that Mike was there about 8 minutes, so I'm going to have to give you the warning at 4 minutes, just so you know. Did you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah. Okay, do you want to start?
sounds like I'm standing in a washroom here, it's just nothing but an echo.
Yeah, but do you have a written submission there also?
I have a written submission, I'll send it to everybody as soon as it's home, because
Yeah, just make sure it's sent to Ellen Canteen. Okay, you want to start there, Jerry? Thank you.
Before we start here, it's just Rory. I'm just going to move the podiums around a little bit. So I'm just going to turn the video and mic off. Just 1 second.
It's
Able to call in and come in again. If I come off the video, am I able to use my phone to call in, Ellen?
Can you hear Ellen? Can you answer that question?
Yes, you can use the same number and then the participant code, and you should be able to dial in as well.
Okay, I might do that if I have to leave, but it is very echoey, so I'm not really hearing it anyway.
But there are written submissions that will be part of the review.
Your worship.
Yes?
I think Rory's trying to work on the echoing. If it does work out to be fine, maybe you could ask Mike to redo his report.
We could, but it's another 8 minutes. And you know what, Councillor Bernard? He has a written submission, so that's why I asked him to make it available.
Okay.
And Jerry has one too, right, Jerry?
yes, I do.
Okay. Jerry, can you just do a test there?
Test 1, 2, 3.
Okay. Is that all right, Councillor?
Oh,
Can you hear?
that's much better.
Alana, Councillor Yankoff, is that much better?
It's okay. Let me hear it again.
Just try it again, Jerry. Test.
Test 1, 2, 3, Jerry Wolford.
Much better.
Yeah, that is a lot better. Thank you.
Okay, Jerry, thank you. And can you please start, Jerry? Thank you very much. Just introduce yourself, Jerry.
Thank you. This consolidation and zoning merger totally ignores the spirit and intent of Charlottetown's official plan. A plan which defines the role of the city as one that articulates policies which preserve existing residential low-density neighborhoods. Well, the city did articulate such a policy in our 2018 zoning bylaw when it added a new land use buffer requirement. It requires a barrier like a wall, a fence, or a water course, designed as a visual and spatial separation between incompatible zones. Section 662 specifies that a 13-foot land use buffer shall be shown on a site plan and constructed along any lot line of a multi-unit residential, commercial, or institutional building where the said lot line abuts an R1L zone. Note, the word zone is key here.
because the bylaw specifies the requirement for that barrier along any lot line of these commercial lots where they abut our R1L zone, not just where they abut a residential lot, as was the case with the repealed landscape open space buffers referenced by planning staff and still being used as late as yesterday by attempting to justify an annexation into Southview Estates. Land use buffers are the polar opposite of landscape buffers that have been repeatedly referenced by planning. And those are amenities like flowers and shrubs within a zone. And they permit driveways so that people can access property within their zone. Conversely, land use buffers make no provisions for private roads because they are intended to act as a visual and spatial separation between incompatible zones. So yesterday I learned for the first time that a proponent of this annexation of zones assumes that the Trainer Street is not part of our R1L zone, and therefore the land use buffer requirement does not apply. That assumption is incorrect, and here's why. The developers of Southview Estates built every square inch of this neighborhood on the residential zone property. That's all of our streets, including Trainer Street and Katy Drive. The owners of the commercial zone contributed nothing to that development. It just happened to back onto our zone, and it still does. Now, here's where it gets a little bit technical, but bear with me. Trainer Street is not colored yellow on our zoning map, as our lots are. But it is not colored red either, as the case with the commercial zone. So does that mean it's not part of any zone? No, it does not. Our zoning bylaw at section 1.44 paragraph A states where the boundary of any zone is uncertain and the boundary substantially follows a street, lane, or public right-of-way, then the center line of such feature is the boundary. So why is that important? It's important because it clarifies that streets are not meant to be excluded from zoning. Furthermore, if the zone boundary line can be down the center line of a street, then streets are intended to be captured within the boundaries of a zone. In our case, the boundary for that C2 highway commercial zone did not move to the center line of Trainer Street when our development built Trainer Street, constructed 100% inside his residential zone. And yes, the commercial zone boundary remained where it always was and where it still is. So because this section 144A tells us that streets are intended to be captured within the boundaries of the zone, and because 100% of Trainer Street was built by our developers in a residential zone, plus the fact that the commercial zone boundary has never moved, then we know that the boundary between our R1L zone and this C2 commercial zone is where the commercial lots abut Trainer Street. Therefore, the requirement for the land use buffer does include the commercial lot line where it abuts our residential zone, the 250 feet along Trainer Street.
Jerry?
Yes.
Can we try to summarize it? You're just over your time.
I've got one paragraph and 6 bullet points left.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So, the requirement for the land use buffer does include where the commercial lot line abuts our residential zone along Trainer Street. The bylaw makes no provision for construction of a private road through that barrier between incompatible zones. The roadway would defeat the sole purpose and intent of the barrier and would totally ignore the stated goals on page 8 of our official plan to preserve and protect existing residential neighborhoods. The safer and more responsible planning remedy is clear. It's the same solution recommended by planning staff in 2019. The landowner must provide these commercial lots with a right-of-way to the current and historic access to the city's Malpeque Road. Otherwise, he has the option to rezone them in conformity with the R1L zone that he's attempting to annex. No, this subdivision and consolidation proposal was not well planned. Does not conform with the strategic direction and long-term vision for our city because, and I have 6 bullet points. Number 1, it ignores the purpose and intent of the official's plan's stated objective to preserve existing residential low-density neighborhoods. Number 2, it ignores our 2018 zoning bylaw with respect to the purpose, the spirit, and the intent of the new land use buffer requirement for a barrier between zones with such incompatible land use. Number 3, it ignores private street access related to the subdivision and consolidation approval criteria outlined in section 45. 4, it ignores the fact that those lots are both non-conforming and would remain non-conforming. And number 5, it ignores our planning board's overwhelming majority, 78%, majority recommendation that council reject the subdivision and consolidation request. And finally, it ignores the purpose and intent of zoning. It involves the annexation of a C2 highway commercial zone with the R1L residential low density zone, 2 zones at opposite ends of the zoning spectrum. That's wrong, it's dangerous, and it threatens the safety and preservation of all of our residential low-density neighborhoods. And no councillor wants this decision sitting on the resume. Thank you very much.
Okay, our next presenter is, I have Jingtao Lu, I think. Just waiting here now.
When you were talking, maybe you have to unmute. Oh yeah, just when you're talking. Yeah.
Okay. Ellen? Can you hear me there, Ellen?
Yes, Your Worship.
So our next presenter is Jingtao Lu?
Let me check with Robert, who else is in the area. Just give me 1 sec here.
Okay. And they could be down getting them from their cars because that's where some of the presenters are to allow for social, physical distancing.
I will try to call in after this presenter, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor McCabe. All the best, Adara.
Thank you.
Your Worship, I think it's just John Barrett who's at City Hall now, so I guess we can ask members who joined via WebEx if they have any inputs.
Perfect. Okay. Do you have your first person to join in with us? Who do you have, Ellen?
I do have Nguyet Huang.
Okay. Okay. Nguyet Huang, are you there? Can you show yourself? Okay. Nguyet Huang.
I'm trying to check where she is. She connected earlier. I don't see her connected. The next would be Jim Lavers.
Okay, Jim Lavers, are you there, Jim? If you are, just on mute. Okay. Well, we do have a McCrae, and that is Andrea McCrae.
Oh, I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
And who's this?
Jim Lavers.
Okay, Jim. Do you want to show your face? Or you're just going to give your presentation?
I don't know if I want to put you through that.
Okay.
I'll just do the presentation. I won't be as eloquent as the previous speakers, but if you don't mind, I got a few words here that I've written down. First of all, I have to say that I did happen to see a package that you councillors received at a previous meeting, and I'm pretty certain many taxpayers, many citizens in this town don't appreciate the volume of information that you must have to deal with each of these meetings. So in some ways, you certainly are to be commended in doing that. I've written a few words, and I'll speak as a resident of Irwin Drive. First of all, I'm very disappointed that residents who, in our subdivision, I estimate likely pay up to $500,000 a year in property taxes, we have to work so hard to protect our quality of life and protect what is, for many of us, a major portion of our life savings. I'm dismayed that our only course of action is to hire our own legal counsel. And, you know, this advice comes from people who we, in fact, as taxpayers, compensate. The irony is not lost. So from this perspective, I ask you to consider some of the concerns being raised. You've heard, and heard before this meeting, that beyond the many breaches in bylaws pointed out this evening, that residents are not here to disrespect the guiding bylaws, but rather we insist on the adherence of them. But yet this evening, situations such as the unsanctioned driveway continues to exist in total disrespect of these same bylaws and without apparent repercussion. I and my spouse Debbie, we moved back to PEI in 1990. We fell in love with our home on Irwin Drive, and that's where we raised 4 children and 2 dogs. Over the years, we've seen the city improve this area, the walking trail, new playground equipment, and an underrated but a very important vehicle turning bay into our subdivision off of Malpeque Road. Today, our neighborhood is certainly vibrant, new families, many with young children, who have made major investments in their homes. This, to me, shows an unmistakable pride of ownership. Irwin Drive, as it exists today, is a rather high-speed, non-policed major thoroughfare. And this condition will only be compounded by allowing the vehicular traffic from the proposed C2 development access through our neighborhood. Even with the development's own entrance off of Malpeque Road, which we believe it should have, Irwin Drive will unavoidably and negatively be impacted, as the subdivision is simply a shortcut for a lot of vehicles who want to avoid the Peter Pan corner but need to head north onto Malpeque Road. Further, I know it has been said that some councillors or some people who do not live in our subdivision were simply successful in exiting Irwin Drive northward as some sort of test in the initial stages, and good for you. But that is no measure to conclude traffic is not an issue, especially with the introduction of another minimum 60 vehicles. To prove the point, we currently have damage on the passenger side of our vehicle, a fender bender, by taking that left turn, and I've been taking it since 1990. It is a dangerous left turn. Add to this the recently announced developments in the north end of town, which will create further burden on Malpeque Road, even with the additional road access being contemplated for the Mount Edward Spencer line. Between the Sherwood Road approval yesterday and the announced or underway developments, there are plans for over 700 residential units, which will depend on the Malpeque Road. This does not count the expected development of the remaining Maples Cottage land and the land owned by St. Dunstan's across from Andrews, which I note there is an exit on that land that's currently being farmed. Listen, so in conclusion, I ask the council make a forward-thinking decision today around the traffic loading and the impact of this decision. As the owner of this roadbed, you must find another solution for the access issue, and you must do it, please, in a manner that we entrusted you, and that is to protect us, the citizens of this great city. So again, thank you for your time. I appreciate this opportunity.
Jim, thank you on behalf of myself and council. But Jim, do you have a written submission that you could forward to Ellen Cantain, or
Yes, I can. Well, what I just read, I can forward off to you for sure.
could you please, and then it'll be available to the public.
Yeah, I must say too, call out to Ellen for herding you cats around for the meeting. It can be no small task, I'm sure. So, anyway, again, thank you.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we want to go with Ellen? Can we go with Andrea?
Yes, I think he would be next. Yep.
Andrea, are you there? You have to unmute, Andrea. We can hear you, Andrea.
Good evening, it's Andrea McRae speaking. Can everybody hear me okay?
It sounds perfect. Andrea, you have 5 minutes. Andrea, could you just tell us where you live within the area?
Yes, so Your Worship, my name is Andrea McRae. I'm a military member currently posted to the National Capital Region in Ottawa, Ontario. I have a vested interest as 5 Trainer Street is the residence of my parents, and I am the power of attorney for that property. And I'm participating tonight as a concerned citizen for the development that is proposed in that area. And I really don't have much to offer any different from which Mr. Labors presented, nor do I have a written submission. But I will say that I echo the points that were made earlier by Mr. Labors, and I do appreciate this opportunity to offer my opinion. Thank you.
Need to unmute, Philip.
Andrea? Just to add, Andrea, the meeting is being taped, it's being recorded, and there will be a public record of what was said in the meeting.
That's perfect.
Thank you, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Your Worship.
Do we have, Ellen, do we have Sean McGilvery or Nugay Hohan?
No, I don't think we have connected. So the next person would be, I think, the applicant or the owner of the property, Chris Daly.
Okay, is Chris Daly on with us? Chris? Just 1 second. He should be here. Chris, are you there? Chris Daly, and there's Chris Lindsell Waddell. Is that you, Chris? Hello?
Tried to unmute both, but I'm not getting any response from them at this time.
Chris, can you unmute? I know that it happens to me and happens to all of us. Are you able to connect?
Right about here. I'm just going to turn the video on for a second, just to see what it looks like.
We're not getting anything, Ellen.
Yeah, that should be good.
Yeah, I can't hear them as well. I tried to request unmute for both Chris and I'm not hearing. Oh, there you go.
I can unmute.
Is this Chris Lindsell or Chris Daly? Chris Lindsell Waddell?
Yeah, this is Chris Lindsell Waddell, and I'm just here to listen tonight to the public and hear what they have to say. So.
Okay. Chris, you don't have anything to add?
No, not at this time.
Chris Daly, is he going to add anything, or is he just doing the same as you?
I think he was here if there was a question to be had towards him, but as I read from Councillor Duffy, there's no questions to be had. It's here to hear facts and facts only.
Yep. Okay, you're all right then. To move on, we're going to move on with another presenter. Okay, Ellen, why don't we go with John Barrett?
Yes, I think we can call John. I don't have anyone else in WebEx, so I think we're good.
Can I just ask a question, Your Worship?
Go ahead.
What happened to the other presenters that Alan was listing off? Like, were they just not able to connect?
I did. There's Sean McGilvery. He's watching via live streaming, and Nue Hohang. was WebEx, but didn't come through. And then there's another, Jingtao Lu, he was to appear in person, but didn't show up.
Oh. So is Ellen gonna follow up on those to make sure that it wasn't just a miscommunication or something?
Is Ellen on the line there? Ellen, can you hear that?
Yes, I don't see any emails here. I'm just trying to check my personal, my office Outlook email. I don't see any emails that says they're having difficulty. They did confirm that they will either join by WebEx and in person, but they just didn't dial in or just didn't show up.
And okay. Councillor Yankoff, they do have the opportunity to submit a written submission by Thursday noon.
Okay, great.
Like
Thank
anyone else. Thank you for the question. So, Ellen, we're just waiting for Mr. John Barrett, who will be
Yes, that's
in
correct.
person. Yeah.
Yes.
And I think Rory is setting him up. Okay.
We're just going to do a quick test here. Just make sure the audio works a little bit better. If you want to try it now.
Yes, I was listening in my car while I was waiting to be called to come in, and unfortunately, because of your system, Mr. Murphy, not a single word was. We couldn't understand a single word that he said due to the video. Mr. Wolfrey was slightly better, but still very difficult. So I'm concerned that maybe other people that were listening were not able to actually hear what they were saying. So they've moved me into a different room here. I don't know if there's less echo.
There is less echo. But a suggestion was made by Councillor Bernard. If Mr. Murphy wanted to re-present, he could. But we also, John, we have...
Yes, John Barrett's coming in very clear. No echo.
John, we also have his written submission that he will leave with Ellen. Okay? So, John, are you ready to present?
Yeah, we're just... Okay.
Just introduce yourself, John.
My name is John Barrett, and yes, my name was attached to the request for reconsideration application. The residents of Southview Estates have been fully engaged throughout this process since day one, and on their behalf, I must express their overwhelming disappointment that we were not able to hold tonight's meeting as originally planned in a facility that could hold up to 50 residents. The virtual format that's being followed tonight is not the same as meeting in public, despite Councillor Duffy's assertions. The poor video, the muffled audio, the inept management of participants' microphones, combined with some residents' access to or intimidation by technology, certainly hampers their ability to watch, listen, and participate. Furthermore, the technical ranting that we witnessed at last night's council meeting to prevent a motion to reschedule is yet another example of the many roadblocks the citizens of our neighborhood have had to endure since this process began. On June 1st, Chris Fournier, a resident member on Planning Committee and the real estate agent of record for Creative Acres, the Traynor Street developing firm, failed to declare a conflict of interest at the outset of that meeting and went on to place a motion recommending the Traynor Street lot consolidation go forward. Fortunately, Planning Committee in their wisdom voted 7-3 against that motion, but 1 week later, Council ignored Planning Committee's recommendation to deny the lot consolidation and voted 7-3 in favor. Here we are, some 198 days later, still arguing the legality, the legitimacy, and the appropriateness of that June 8th decision. I can't help but highlight the irony of how last night's request to place a motion was considered out of order, yet the motion placed by an individual so obviously in a conflict of interest position was allowed, and as a result laid the groundwork for all that has taken place over the last 6 months. Had it not been for anything more than sheer luck that a Southview resident had learned of the June 8th decision, Southview Estates would have been none the wiser and left with no recourse to challenge what was felt to be a very poor decision by council. Again, the angst and frustration of having to draft and deliver both a request for reconsideration and to file an appeal to the Island Regulatory Appeals Commission within 24 hours easily have been avoided if council only saw the wisdom in sharing their proposed actions in advance with taxpayers rather than hiding behind a regulation that does not compel them to act. That style of governance is not in keeping with the values and the trust that we as taxpayers expect from City Hall. Shortly following the submission of our request for reconsideration, I was informed that this that for this request to even be heard, our submission had to pass a threshold test. It seemed quite apparent that we had met at least 2 of these criteria, but as time passed, we found ourselves in what appeared to be a battle that had little to do with what was right or wrong for the residents, and everything to do with winning or losing. And perhaps most of all, the avoidance of ever admitting that perhaps an incorrect decision had been reached. While this document speaks for all the residents of Southview Estates, I must admit that from a personal perspective, I've been extremely disappointed by the win at all cost approach that I have encountered with certain individuals throughout this process. The most recent example of this is the time and expense incurred by the city yesterday when, in their own words, the city legal counsel implied that they spent the day researching the legitimacy of an agenda addition before the addition of said item had even been placed by Deputy Mayor Cody. I would hope that going forward that these sorts of roadblocks are an exception rather than the rule, and that together we might find our way back to establishing what is fair and equitable for the residents of Southview Estates. While Mr. Murphy has addressed the traffic study and the implications of the apartment traffic, I do wish to add that over the course of the last 6 months, numerous residents have asked why the entrance and exit to the proposed apartments couldn't simply be from Malpeque Road. Many were told from a variety of city sources that the province controlled that section of highway and that permission would never be granted. We have recently learned from our district's MLA, Mr. Zach Bell, and I quote, "The city owns Malpeque Road south of the southern border of the bypass right-of-way and thus has the jurisdiction of controlling access to their section of Malpeque Road." Mr. Wolfrey has addressed the land use buffer question in detail tonight. However, I do wish to draw your attention to a principle known as the Draeger principle. For the last 20 years, this modern principle has emerged as the expression of the Supreme Court of Canada's approach to statutory interpretation. It states that there is only one principle or approach. Namely, the words of an act are to be read in their entire context and in their grammatical and ordinary sense, harmoniously with the scheme of the act, the object of the act, and the intention of the legislative body. While some may see the question of land use buffers and landscape buffers as vague in the existing bylaw, the underlying truth of the matter is that when using the Draeger's principle, it's clearly apparent that whereas other sections of the bylaw specifically state when access roads are permitted across open land areas, the article related to land use buffers does not state that an access road is permitted, and therefore the drafters likely did not intend for it to be permitted. You will find a detailed explanation complete with legal precedents within my full written report. Being an elected official at any level of government must be a very difficult task. While it's impossible to please all of the people all of the time, the number of issues, the complexities of the legal system, and the responsibility to do what's right for the electorate must weigh heavy on those who have chosen to serve. Having read some of the very lengthy meeting packages you receive only a few days before your meetings, including the 429 pages you were burdened with prior to last night's council meeting, I'm not sure how you would be expected to cover and grasp such vast amounts of technical and frequently complicated literature. The Traynor Street issue is not one of those not in my backyard issues as we have seen throughout the city in recent months. Our argument is that based on our city's bylaws, access to these apartments cannot take place by means of a Traynor Street access. The buffer regulations prevent it. The lots previously consolidated were non-conforming at the time of consolidation, and the concept of flowing C2 highway traffic into an R1 zone is unprecedented within the city limits of Charlottetown. Perhaps even more importantly, the development is not harmonious in nature and does not mirror the existing neighborhood profile. These are the city's words, not mine. These are the city's words as found in your own planning documents. One needs to look no further than Pine Drive to see an example of where planning staff would not provide building permits for these very same reasons. I spoke earlier about the conflict that exists between the winning-losing attitude we have seen from some and the mindset of others who focus on doing what's right. I believe the time has come to stop nitpicking the intricacies of bylaws, the vague interpretations of what can and can't be done, and start to put heartfelt thought behind your eventual vote by asking yourself, what is the right thing to do? The reconsideration method itself was not established to be an adversarial process. By meeting the threshold required, those requesting reconsideration are simply bringing forward new and relevant information that was either not considered or not available at the time of the initial decision. Unfortunately, that there are those who do not appear to be open to any new or pertinent information. A councillor's oath states that they must diligently, faithfully, impartially, and to the best of their ability perform the duties of office. Any councillor who refuses to be open to considering facts placed before them should recuse themselves from the reconsideration vote, as they clearly have not approached the issue in a manner expected of them through their oath of office. I certainly don't need to remind you that the city has been subjected to a rather immense level of opposition as of late. Development projects in almost every ward of the city have residents concerned for the future of their neighborhoods, and their outcry in the media has become extremely frequent rather than an exception. In every instance, the process itself has contributed to residents being in a David and Goliath situation, while the city uses every resource possible to avoid reversing a decision and repeatedly stating they can always take it to IRAC. Rescinding the Traynor Street consolidation decision would certainly be viewed by the public as a win for the city, and would most definitely help reestablish the public's trust and the public's view of how council approaches development within its boundaries. On behalf of the Southview residents, I thank you for this brief time that we've been provided, and I encourage you to read my entire written presentation along with its appendices. Printed copies of this presentation have been provided for each councillor, and they are now available here at City Hall.
Thank you, John. I think, Ellen, did any other speakers come to our WebEx portal?
I don't see anybody else connected. So I think we covered everyone.
Okay. Any questions from councillors about what just took place in terms of the meeting, or are we ready to call for a motion to adjourn?
I would move a motion to adjourn.
Is that signal to? You want to, Councillor Duffy, are you still there with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Your Worship, it's Councillor here. So Councillor Duffy, at the start of the meeting, had indicated that this is to hear from the public, and that we weren't permitted to ask any questions. So that's, I'm assuming, why there's a dead silence when you're asking that question.
Yeah.
I just wanted any clarification. So can we get someone, a councillor, just to move for an adjournment?
I'll move for adjournment, Your Worship.
Wait, hang on, just before you do that, Mayor, I just wanted to make a note that, that it's probably imperative that we get copies of Mike and Jerry's presentations, because I know that I wasn't able to hear anything that Mike said.
Sure.
So.
Yeah.
It was difficult, yeah, and he will leave a copy, but Ellen's listening into what we're talking about or speaking about. She'll forward all that information on to us. And any other submissions, residents, citizens of Charlottetown have until Thursday, December 17th until 12 noon to submit. Councillor Rivard.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the process from here is what? Does it go back to planning staff for a recommendation? How does this work now?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. Mr. Forbes, are you there, Alex? And let's do this in the public forum. That's great. Alex, can you answer the question from Councillor Rivard?
Yeah, the intent is that after the public make their submissions, we will do up a report. We'll send that back to council. I think the council meeting is scheduled for Thursday, and there will be the options for council to pursue, whichever direction they wish to take on this application.
Your Worship,
follow up, Councillor Rivard.
Just to follow up. So you're saying that the turnaround time for a vote is Thursday, and again, because a lot of councillors couldn't hear from some of the residents speaking, I think it's unfair to burden council with this much literature and to make a decision. So it still has to go to planning then submit something back to council for the Thursday meeting. And we're going to make a reconsideration decision on this in this short period. I think that's too fast.
No, just, Alex, can you, is planning board, or Councillor Duffy, is that the intent, that we will meet as a planning board prior to it going back to council?
I'm not sure. I'm deferring to Alex on it.
Alex?
As a process.
Yeah, Your Worship, this issue is beyond planning board. Planning board has already made their decision on this. This is a reconsideration. Council has asked for the reconsideration. Council is the decision maker. So whatever the report would go back to council, and it would be council's decision as to where they would wish to take things from here on in.
Councillor Bernard, just 1 second. Councillor Yankoff, did you have something?
Yeah, I'm just a bit perplexed that we would actually be having a meeting of council on Thursday at 5 o'clock when people have until noon on Thursday to submit. I would not have nearly enough time to read all the documentation, so.
It will not be on the agenda.
I'm just saying, on anything.
What's that?
Yeah, I will not be. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Bernard.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that Thursday is definitely rushed. I mean, all the issues that went on with this particular project here, this is just another not a good idea. I mean, there's time to push this off till next week, or even beyond Christmas. So I agree. I think it's rushed at the very least. So it has to be another timeline. We have a lot of information. The other thing is, I believe some of the things that some of the presenters brought up, whether it's the berm, whether it's the driveway, we've been hearing different from our planners. So for me, whether it's a committee of the whole, whatever, I think we need to have a meeting and bring up some of the issues that these people brought up. But I'd like to hear what our planners are saying. I'd like, what's facts and what's not. What do some people think is right? What do the planners think is right? Are the planners wrong? So some of the information, I'm getting mixed messages here. I'm getting one thing from planners saying this is legal. I'm getting one thing from these people saying it's not.
So
I hope that when the discussion happens, that's why I think it's a little rush. I think you need to get the people in the room, and I think we need to go through all these concerns and get it right.
And Councillor Bernard, just to follow up with Councillor Rivard,
you can't do that in a day and a half.
Yeah, the information. It was John Barrett that brought it to my attention that Thursday, December 17th at noon is the last final hour for submission. So yeah, it will not be on the agenda for Thursday. We'll have to look at another date and time, and maybe bring in planning to go over it with it. But I think Alex already stated his case. They're done with it. It's now up to council to make a decision. Councillor Rivard, did you have something to say?
So, okay, so if we need further clarification from planning staff, are we waiting for the actual council meeting for that? Are we setting up a separate meeting in order to be able to ask those questions? One issue that Mr. Barrett brought up that I really need to try to understand is he made reference to the Pine Drive application, and I do recall that staff at the time had refused to give a building permit. Even though the zoning was right, there was no variance required, nothing. Staff still didn't allow it. So I guess I'm trying to figure out what the difference is between that application and what's being done here, because it's predominantly R1 and Pine Drive was predominantly R1. So I need clarification on that, and when that happens, I don't know, but that's a big thing for me.
Councillor Duffy, do you want to weigh in there?
I would weigh in. I would hope, Your Worship, that we would get together with the professionals in this planning department to explain the intricacies and I agree exactly with Councillor Bernard and Councillor Rivard that we want. You're right. There's a lot of colliding ideas and colliding theories, so to speak. Let's get the pros in. Let's listen to what the pros say and explain it all to us all at one time.
Councillor Bernard.
No, that's what I was looking for. I don't think you can do this in a day and a half. I think what the chair just said is what we have to do. We have to get. I'd like to go over everything that they've said. Mike, there was a lot of echo, so I do want to read through it, and then when we have our meeting, we want to be prepared for questions for our professional staff.
So Councillor. Councilor Bernard, it's not going to be on Thursday's agenda. That's already decided. And Councilor Duffy and I and Mr. Kelly, we can look at some other date, but yeah, and it could be a joint meeting of planning and council, but again, it'll have to be a WebEx.
Your Worship, can we just agree that this is going to happen in the new year? Because when we pass this week into next, we are getting desperately close to Christmas, and I think it's a sharp.
I don't see this happening before Christmas. No, I don't see this happening
with restrictions and everything else. So I would like to see this at least moved into the new year.
And Councilor Rivard, it's next Friday is Christmas, so any time between Christmas and New Year's, it's not going to be possible.
Well, even before Christmas, with all the COVID rules and the stress of trying to get people home or shop, I think it's the wrong time.
No, fully agree with you. It's just, let's take our time. And could I please ask councillors and planning board members to read the submissions that Jerry, Mike, John, and others that will be sending into City Hall before noon, Thursday noon, December 17th. Yep. Councillor Cody, Deputy Mayor Cody, did you want to say something?
I did. Yeah, I did, Your Worship. I tried to jump in a little earlier, but Councillor Yankoff, Rivard, and Bernard basically covered off what I was saying. Thursday's meeting would be way too soon when submissions can be made. But Your Worship, if I could, and I don't want to hold anyone's feet to the fire here today, but as you know, this has been going on for 6 months. This is a very personal issue for the residents in this area, and if we could nail down a date so that they're not, well, is it, when is it Monday after Christmas, is it Wednesday after Christmas? Everyone's kind of wondering. It'd be nice to just have some guidelines in place here, like you say, get the information, let's review it, and I think we still have some time here to make an appropriate decision that everyone can live with.
Okay. I think I just lost my connection.
I can hear you, Your Worship.
Oh, good. Councillor Deputy Mayor, I fully agree with you. So it will be in the new year, and we'll sit down with the planning committee and decide how we go forward.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Any other comments? Did I hear some?
Yeah, Your Worship, it's Councillor Rivard again, sorry. So if we are going to push this back into the new year, is there any need to put a noon deadline on Thursday for submissions, or can we just push to Friday at 4 o'clock?
Councillor Rivard, there's a lot of echoing. Is that because of me?
Not me, I'm on mute.
It's only coming from you, Your Worship.
It is coming from me?
Yeah.
Not now. You're good now.
Okay.
In answer to Councillor Rivard, Your Worship, we've already tacked a day on. We usually take them by lunchtime the day following the public meeting, the meeting we had tonight. We haven't asked for them tomorrow at dinner time. We've asked them for the following day. So it's not a big deal, but I don't see any need to, we want an extra day, take an extra day. Sure, it's not. It's lots of days.
I was just asking for clarification, just because, again, I know that the Thursday noon time was the deadline because the initial plan was to have it on Thursday evening, but, seeing that council, doesn't want to have it Thursday evening, fair enough. I'm just throwing out the idea that is there an extension on that? Listen, it's irrelevant to me. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, Councillor, Your Worship, if we didn't have the manuscripts to read, that we didn't know at supper hour tonight, we weren't planning on having a lot of reading material out of this meeting tonight. But now that has changed because of the two speakers that are going to submit them, and everybody should read them. Everybody should read everybody's that's submitted. So I have no problem.
Oh, yeah. Is that all right, councillors? Good?
Yep, sounds good.
Okay, so Mike, Councillor Duffy?
Yes.
You and I and Mr. Kelly get together.
Sure.
And just look at a date, and we'll have a date on Thursday night.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah. Do you want to move to adjourn, Your Worship?
I do. Is anybody want to second it? Councillor Yankoff? All those in favor? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, folks. Thank you very much.
Planning board members and